Well, hey everyone, in this video, I'm gonna be engaging with some content that has to do with kids and technology, specifically kids and smartphones.
How do I raise my children to live in this technology-focused society without allowing them to become obsessed?
Your kids, your first kid, your second kid, your third kid are going to find out the way the world works by watching you and your husband.
Okay.
And so if you want to create a world where phones are not the centerpiece of that world, at least until they get into grade school, make phones like a screwdriver. It just stays in the drawer. It's a tool that we use when we need it.
And so I like where he goes with this right off the bat because especially when kids are very young, as parents, sometimes we feel like we're conflicted because we have our priorities, but we also have to live in this world. And our kids have to live in this world. And so we might look at something and say, well, ideally, I would want it to be this way, but we have to live in the real world. As kids get older, there's less control that we have over their environment. And that's appropriate for us to have less control. Man, when they're young, you have a lot of control. And so I think that what he's saying here is true, especially when kids are young. Man, as parents, we have a ton of freedom to set up the norms because they're with us a ton of time. They're at home a ton of time. We are, as parents, you are their world in many ways. And so I think especially as parents of young kids looking to set the tone, you have a lot of power. You have a lot of ability to set up norms when the kids are very young.
Ta-da! And your kids will not even understand that's part of the world. Here's one of my operating rules. Whenever a child walks into a room, I put whatever screen I'm looking at down. Even if I tell them, hey, I'm in the middle of sending a text message, I need you to wait a minute. That's okay. Hey, I'm in the middle of working on a work email right now. I need you to give me 2 minutes, okay? Most of the time, I'm just mindlessly scrolling like an idiot, and it's good that I put the phone down.
I love this point also that he makes. And I think that it goes to the bigger point of saying that our kids, people will often say, kids pick up more things by what we do. That there's more things that are caught than taught from parents. And so part of this, I think that this can really happen to us as parents, because I know that it happens to me sometimes. I look at my kids and I see the pull of, especially the smartphone, but just of the screens, and I get concerned about it. But when it comes to me, I feel like, but it's fine, I can handle it. I'm kind of like, I'm mature enough that I can have my phone right there and be scrolling or be looking at things, or that I can, have my computer out and be playing games or just kind of doing all that. I can handle that. But for them, I get concerned. And so I think that we have an opportunity to model this. And certainly he'll talk about it in a little while, I think. The idea that we can set up norms for our kids and we can set up restrictions for our kids. But if we, as moms and dads, are modeling the idea that, yes, we have these screens, we have a computer, we have phones, and yes, we use them, but we use them pretty sparingly, and we have lots of times that they are just not a factor in what we're doing. That gives our kids at least that option. Because if they feel like in other settings, that's just not even an option, at least we're giving them that option. So we should look at ourselves instead of saying, well, I need to do this for my kids, but I'm fine, I can handle it. We can start with ourselves and say, how do I need to make sure that I'm not obsessed with all of this so that I'm modeling it for them and also as a safeguard for me, because I don't want to be that person who, I'm out on a date with my wife where we're both just looking at our phones. I don't want to be that kind of person. I don't want to be obsessed with screens, so we can look at ourselves first.
But that's one of our rules. I want my kids to know you are more important than whatever flashy thing is in front of me. Your kids cannot compete with the psychologist and neurobiologist and tech companies who have all joined forces to create the single most addictive device that's ever existed. They can't compete. And so to hand that to a 6th grader or to a 9th grader and say, well, you only get 30 minutes, is like handing cocaine to a kid and saying you only get to do a little bit, right? It's just not fair.
Yeah, I hear what he's saying in the last point. I'm not quite sure what he's proposing as an alternative. I'm not sure if he's proposing Certainly with a sixth grader, it's like, I get the idea that with a sixth grader, you could say, hey, they're just not going to have a phone. With a ninth grader, there are people that decide, hey, our kids are not going to have smartphones, and I think that that's a legit decision. If you make that decision, I think that what's really important to do is to find people that you can be in community with who are making those same decisions, so that your kids can experience that, and so that your kids, it's hard. It's not just hard sort of psychologically when you're the one person that doesn't have it. It's not simply that I'm talking about that, but it's hard because if they're saying friends are making plans through texting or through Instagram, or even for us, Exit 83 tells, our student ministry tells about what's going on through Instagram. Or even for my kids in school, it's like they do a lot of their assignments online. So I'm not quite sure what he's saying for the alternative. I understand the sense behind what he's saying, but I also think that at least when our kids do reach a certain age, there is going to be more access to the screens. And it is important for us as parents to look to have rules and have limitations, but also try to communicate the heart behind this. And this is where I think that his earlier advice was so good in saying, if we are showing them what it looks like to live a full life, a life that is not devoted to, I need to constantly make sure I don't miss something that would happen, or if I'm bored for 2 seconds, I'm picking up my phone and looking at something. We have the opportunity to show them that option. But we also have the opportunity, when our kids are in our home, to say, no, you don't get to do this thing. And it's not quite the parallel with the cocaine or whatever, because there is a way to do this well. It's hard to do it well. There is a way to do this well. And we try to teach our kids in the same way that we're like, you can have 1 cookie, but you can't have 5 cookies. We can say, all right, you get to play this game for 20 minutes, and after that, you're done. So I agree with the sentiment of what he's saying, but I also think that we're in a position where we do have to figure out a way to do that. And the more that we can support each other in community while doing that, the easier it's going to be for our kids to take it in, and the easier it's going to be for us to show our kids something better than this.